Grounds TVA.
That's a big one.
Before we go to the general fund for the parks and TSX and stuff.
Okay.
And that is on page 51. 5.1 is where the building and grounds fund is located.
So, let me just preference the building and ground. Guido has a lot to do with this budget, but he also consults with the administration in his office on what projects and what things that, you know, he prioritizes and he wants to get done. So a lot of this budget is built between, you know, the mayor's office, Guido, and even though that falls under me, Guido kind of helps determine what needs to get done in the park. So I'll do my best to answer all the individual questions, which are pretty straightforward because he documents really well in the worksheets that Jason has there. And I know the mayor on some of the bigger projects will be able to speak to those.
So
It's been a while since I looked at them.
I know, but Guido does great notes. He puts great notes in there, so.
So just a little history on this fund. The fund is mainly paid for with the building and grounds tax or TVA. So the assumption always is that all the city-owned buildings and surrounding properties, the parks and things like that, are actually in the name of the TVA, and then they lease it back to the city. And this is a standard with cities who have TVAs. And then part of that lease agreement is the obligation to pay any type of debt that was used to acquire the building and the maintenance of the buildings and surrounding areas. So when we see the budget, that the revenue is through that tax that we're allowed to levy for that. But as you see the expense side, you have some debt that's in there, which is, sorry, let me do my little thing here. There you go. Which the debt is, like I said, right now we pay about approximately, approximately just under $1.1 million in debt, and most of that's related to the TSX, because TSX debt is split between TIFA and building and grounds. And then the other large item, there is some allocated wages for the parks personnel, above the wages right now, but there is a split, small percentage of splits for the parks personnel, because they work, sometimes they work in the parks, but sometimes they also work on the buildings. Guido and his staff work on the buildings, so that's why there's a portion of their stuff allocated to the building and grounds, because they help maintain the buildings. So this is the area with the wages, and we can go back to it, just kind of go over the summary. And then the other major cost is really the cost of upkeep of the building and surrounding areas, which is what I'm pointing at right here. This is what's budgeted for next year. Here's the request, and then a reduction just based on funding levels. We had to reduce some out of the original request. So, and then we'll open up the tab that shows that first. So, with that being said, where would we want to go, Jeff? You want to go to capital outlay first and look at that area?
Okay. Yeah, because the rest of that stuff is just operating. I mean, it's not the big numbers capital outlay. And there's a lot in park maintenance too. You know, $572,000, but that's to keep the parks, equipment, mowing, supplies, mulch, all that stuff. So.
All right, let's see. This is a pretty big document, and a lot of.
You're right. There are a lot of notes.
A lot of
Yeah,
notes.
a lot of notes. Guido and I discussed. You know, he talks with you, and then he talks to me, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, make sure we document it. What we're trying to do."
So during the budget talks, when you hear some things, especially yesterday with the court, you'll see in here, I believe it's under like some miscellaneous areas here, is you'll see in here like upgrade security, and you'll say city building. So try to find the exact language, but some of this is kind of earmarked, and these are all placeholders. But like I said, security, things like that. There's some of the stuff that's going to be allocated, to the court. They had some things that we removed because it could have been underneath building and grounds. So that's what you see here. And then also, Mayor, do you want to talk about this item, or is council aware of this? We got some numbers coming. look at, so.
I don't think this was left in the number though, right? This was removed?
Well, a big majority of it was removed because this is just, Guido just threw his number in, but, if you want to talk about it, there's a couple projects that are in the hopper that we're looking at, that we're trying to get some numbers and see if it makes sense bond-wise or not. But
So you guys know that you guys approved the architectural services
That's
for
right.
the media building, and this was a placeholder that Guido had put in, just trying to allocate a portion of funding, because some of this will be paid for by the PEG fees that are captured from the cable companies. So he put it in, and I believe it was removed, or the majority of it was removed from this budget, but we're going through the process right now of the financial analysis for the potential of bonding or borrowing to complete both facilities, the media center as well as the parks building.
yeah, so we don't believe, I mean, we're gonna get those estimates relatively quick, because we just signed to get a letter from our bond people to give us some pricing, but it definitely won't be in the $1 million range for, if we would bonds, it won't be in the $1 million range for the bond payments. It should be less than that, so that's part of the reason why there was that mayor adjustment to reduce this item, so. But we don't just put it in because he just didn't know at the time, so he just threw it in there.
And when we say that these are placeholders that can, you know, the funds are there, but if there's repairs on other buildings or other things, it can be shifted. So if something's failing and breaking badly, it can be, as long as it's in this account, we can, you know, we'll pre-approve some vendors, but any other big ones, we would send out for bid and get the bid done. These are still, these look like big, these are big dollars, but they still, these things are bid out. Anytime it's over 2,000, it still has to, other than the normal maintenance items that we blanket certain POs just for certain services.
So line 28, if you remember yesterday in the court budget, as Jason pointed out, that was removed from the court's budget, but not removed from the budget. It was just placed in TVA where we felt it belonged.
What will be the use overall of it? What will it be used for?
So you remember back in the day when we used to have like, I don't know what they called it, but like government cable channel, and we used to film and do a lot more broadcasting, educational platforms. So that's one of the intended uses. Obviously, the museum would be the other use, but when we met with Comcast, that was our argument that, you know, they stopped paying the PEG fee because back in the day they negotiated that we could use their facility on Eureka Road. Well, that went away, and so did the PEG fee. So we said, wait a minute, you can't take away both. So we said we want to, you know, bring back the media concept, and we want the PEG fee to help pay for it. So that's how we got to that point of the discussion. So we get it from WOW, AT&T, and Comcast now.
Those are the three.
Yeah.
How much is that?
The Comcast edition was like $65,000 annually that we were going to start getting from them, and then the other two were $20,000 or $30,000.
Yeah, I think you got
So
it.
they
roughly
might be able to
100
come
grand.
in and use that building? Is that
No.
what it is? Or we're gonna use it, using Comcast and those,
Yeah, we're going to use it broadcast through the cable access channels that they offer.
oh, okay.
So we do intend to also work with the schools and let them do, you know, like educational platforms of, you know, kids that are in marketing or whatever, you know, journalism or whatever it is, you know, different opportunities. And it won't be 24/7, but there will be opportunities for us to use it accordingly. So that's,
Who's the guy that used to do that? Because I was on an interview thing one time with him when we were at Comcast over there. The heavy set guy, kind of bald, I can't remember his name. I got a picture of his face.
how,
Do you know who I'm talking about? No, it wasn't Carl, but he was,
I did Jay Gordon used to have a show on
it wasn't.
Didn't Ted Boyd used to have one
Yeah.
back in the day?
Yeah.
Well,
they used to
those were
broadcast
you
from the
guys.
fireworks, the
Yeah.
Little League games. I mean, there's just so much you can do if you're set up.
Yeah.
He did a thing for the alumni, you talked to John Panelone and myself, and it was like, they had like these curtains around, you were just sitting at a desk, but they had the jam around you, it was really.
We toured Westland recently